everyone, I'm Sabrina Ware, the director of the Sanctuary of Hope, and I'd like to thank you and welcome you back to Real Talk, presented by the Sanctuary of Hope. And I want to remind you all of our theme for the year of 2022, Refine, Reshape, Renew in 2022. Now, this month is Women's History Month, and in honor of that, I would like our theme to be, just for this particular series, which is two series, we're going to honor women in the Lehigh Valley. And I'm so grateful for being one of those women in the Valley, but we're not going to talk about me. I do have guests with us. But before I start talking about that, I was just thinking through what community looks like. And I remember being younger when we would talk about community, you would just think about the neighborhood. Community is so much more. When we talk about community or think about community, we think about togetherness, we think about people in like-mindedness, and when we think about community, we think about just kind of joining together. So one of the things, and I would like us just to continue to pull in on and what community looks like. And when we talk about history, something that happened yesterday is history. So I know, again, when we look at the mind frame, when we talk about history, sometimes we go back to maybe the 1940s, 50s, 60s. But history, again, whatever impact you've made on a person yesterday, that is something that is historical. So having said that, I do have a guest with me today, which I'm so happy to have with me. My good friend Delia. Her and I met very recently. Okay, however, her story has been such a impact and so profound. I'm so grateful she decided to join us here today. So I'm gonna decrease so she may increase, and she's gonna tell you a little bit more about herself.
Thank you so much for having me today. It is such an honor to be here. I'm so glad I get to share this space with you, and especially for Women's History Month. You know, that means so much to me because I stand on the shoulders of some wonderful women. You know, not only my ancestors, like you said, just someone from the 1940s, but just my mother and my aunts and, her mother, and just so I stand on the shoulder of giants. So I am privileged, and it's an honor to be here to share this space and to talk to your audience. My name is Delia Mitchell, and I am a certified life coach and CEO for Honor Your Vision Life Coaching. I have been in Lehigh Valley now for 4.5 years. Wow. So yes, time is flying, but sometimes it feels like it's longer. But I help people, I help people and try to make an impact. I help people just reach them where they are. Anyone who is just trying to set goals, someone who's trying to work on being more organized. But overall, anyone who's already working on themselves and want to take it to the next level. Wow. I try to be that instrument to stand in the gap to help them.
Okay. And is that, so now I know you have dual roles.
Yes.
Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about what it looks like with your role as a life coach, and then we're going to go into the community. So as a life coach, what does that look like for you? Now, I know you're a Christian.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Now, I know there are Christian life coaches and there's life coach. What is the difference, and what do you bring in terms of your ministry and your calling with the life coach?
Okay. Well, I think the difference is maybe just what you prefer to specialize in. Me, I want to help anyone, so if you haven't reached that stage where you are a believer in Christ, you still can come to me for, my help. If you are a Christian, that's wonderful, and we still can work together. So as a life coach, I want to address the holistic part of, you. So whether you're working on your career goals, whether you're working on just your emotional goals, if you just need help with physical goals. Now, I'm not saying that I'm going to be out running with you or anything like that, but just the mindset, just helping to provide strategies to help you over that hump, so to speak. So that's like my role as a life coach, a coach, a supporter, just a supporter. You already have, the want to do it. That's why you're coming to a life coach. A life coach is not like a therapist. It's you're already at a certain part in your career, in your life. You just need that extra push, those strategies to maybe get you just away from maybe like old thinking that's getting in the way.
Okay, very interesting that you said that, because I do know sometimes people kind of compare the two, and sometimes I've heard either one group, life coach as well as therapist, kind of put one another down in terms of that field. Now, to my understanding, because as I took courses in my graduate school level, I did take a life coaching course, and I thought it was phenomenal. I love that aspect, and I just want to know what your take is when we start talking about the mind, because you mentioned something. Some people may, I notice like even as a therapist, sometimes people get stuck, and you said it's to move them over to the next level. Do you see there is a lot of cognitive things with people that keeps them in a certain area where they would come to you for help as a life coach?
I do. I think, just when you think about, let's use, for example, just losing weight. I think sometimes with that, it's the way, you talk about yourself, the way you talk to yourself. Oh, I'm struggling to have to lose weight, or I can't, it's not good for me every time I try, I lose. And I think it's that thinking, those words, I can't, a lot of us grew up where you couldn't even say I can't in a household, but it goes with that. So it's like you're wording what you put in your mind, what you've conditioned your mind to think. So I'm not a therapist. So yes, a therapist can be, a life coach, easily, but as a life coach, me trying to do therapeutic services that requires more schooling and, a different type of license. And not only that, a therapist sometimes will address that trauma. As a life coach, when you come to me, you probably have already addressed the trauma. Now you're trying to get to that maybe restoration stage. You've addressed the trauma. Now you're here. You want to get pushed and get strategies to continue. And that's where I come in.
Wonderful.
So a person who comes to see me, they could be already seeing could at the same time be seeing a therapist, or they already have spent their time with their therapist, and now they're ready. Because, trauma can also be a barrier as, to completing your goals. And if that is, you want to work on that before you come to a life coach. Because with a life coach, you do the work. You do the work.
And there's accountability.
It's a lot of accountability. And if you have something that is trauma or some other type of mental health concern that's keeping you from that, even though you want to get that addressed with your therapist, with your counselor.
Okay, wow, that's great. Okay, and I can see the passion as you talk about that. Now, in your career journey, were you a life coach first and then your role in the community, or like which came first?
My role in the community came first.
Okay, I was about to say what came first, the chicken or the egg, but that would have been corny, right? So
no, my work in the community, I was certified as a life coach in 2015, but I've been working in the community and doing social impact since probably 2001. Because I started out as a rehab counselor, and then I got certified as a drug and alcohol counselor. So I started doing that work, and then not only that, right out of college, I did the rehab at a mental health hospital where I worked on the dual diagnosis unit. So I worked with people who suffered with addiction and mental health. And I did therapeutic groups and things like that. From there, I went to the school system in Louisville, Kentucky, my hometown. But I went to the school system, and in the school system, I worked for the early childhood program, and I was a family service worker. And in retrospect, that's when I started my life coaching. Before I knew about life coaching, because what I would do is I would go to families' homes, and I would sit down with them, and I would do what we call a family partnership agreement and a family portfolio. In that agreement, I would sit down with them, and they would write out their goals. And through that time where their child was in early childhood, I would help them with their goals, follow up with their goals, and provide resources to them so they can complete their goals, finish their goals. Wow. So in retrospect, I was a life coach.
Right. Even before you had the title or the certification.
Even before that, I was already kind of walking in that calling. Way before I got the certification. Matter of fact, I went on and got the certification because a friend of mine just told me about it. I didn't see it on TV. I didn't go research it. He just one day asked me and said, "Have you heard of a life coach?" Wow. This was like years after working for, early childhood. I had started already working in addictions as a counselor. He asked me about it, and even when he was talking about it, I was like, Right. But he was like, and he started talking about just the way we see ourselves, the words we tell ourselves, and how it makes a big impact, and how just giving someone strategies of the way that they talk or the way they condition to think can change a person's life.
Wow, absolutely. And you've worked with families as well as individuals on different capacities.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes, I have. Well, now that you said it, I have.
Oh my gosh. So when I think about, so from Kentucky to the Valley, what does it look like with your role here in Lehigh Valley? And you're impacting the community and the schools and the things that you're doing. What does that look like for you every day, what your role is?
I think the impact for me in the Valley is representation. Just being in the community, and just for people to see, that there's black and brown, people in our field that are here, to support, because a lot of the people that I serve are, minorities, and sometimes in the school systems, or sometimes, just around, it's not a lot of representation. Right. So just having, I think, that representation of myself, just a woman coming into the community, being able to create these spaces, whether I'm not a therapist, but creating a therapeutic, like setting, and I think that's the biggest, impact in the Valley right now. Just being able to create more spaces, not just for, black and brown people, but where they can also feel very included in the spaces.
Right, yes. Now, I know for me, like just thinking about growing up and what a strong woman looked like. Like I felt that they had to have heels on and a suit and, such. And I did that when I worked in corporate America. I was a customer service manager. Well, I started off as a representative and then a supervisor and then a manager and such. And I was in the helping field, but then my passion was actually being more one-on-one, being more personable, which is what made me go into the mental health field, where it ain't heels, it's leggings and a sweater and sneakers, because I'm going into homes, feeding into people, and the diversity of different families that I'm in. It doesn't matter. I've been in, all colors, and being able to make that difference. And it's so amazing how receptive families are because the need is there. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's just so many different capacities that, and the doors that are open for women nowadays versus, years ago, when there were lots of movements for us to be able to do those things and be in those spaces. So I just think it's amazing. And even me encouraging my daughters and, my families that I'm in, especially the young girls, they need to be able to look at someone positive, to look at those positive figures, to know, wow, I can do that too, and what that looks like, you know what I mean? So it's just amazing that you have been a part and in different venues within the field, both the mental health, drug addiction, and then now being in the school systems. How often do you meet with kids? What does it look like with your role? Is it weekly?
Well,
monthly? Like, what does that look like?
Well, most of the time, I must say, I work with like administrators to try to provide resources for families. But here lately, because just the need, of just services, whether life coaching services or therapeutic services, it's become a little more often to where I have the privilege to do like small groups. And those small groups are like grief groups. And those groups are like coping skills, building healthy relationships. So I'm doing that more often than I was able to do, maybe a couple of years ago.
Okay. Gotcha.
And so I'm able to do that. Before I came to the Valley, like I worked with adults, like I told you, in the mental health field. And even with working with the school system, I work more with the families, doing family partnership agreement. So now being able to do the small groups, of course, I've always been able to do it for my church, the youth.
Yes.
Always been able to do it for my youth in Kentucky as well as here in the Valley. But in the schools, just being able to do those small groups has probably been more often in the past 2 years.
Okay, wow, that's amazing. And I'm glad you brought that point up, because I forgot to mention when I introduced Delia that I met her at Grace Deliverance with Pastor Jay. Brandon Jay is the pastor. And Minister Linda actually invited me to be a part of the Ayana, You Are Not Alone service for those who lost someone. And one of the things, again, when we're talking about impact in the Valley, we're here at the Sanctuary of Hope, and we're at 541 East Broad Street. And one of the things we're going to be doing is providing that hope, as we always do. And Delia, with all of her experience, will be one of the support group leaders as we're ironing out those things. So, to our online audiences, I always say, please just write in a note, write in the comment section support groups that you would like to see, because we are building a support group now that we're looking to for our single ladies. And, our goal is, again, us looking at what impacting the community looks like, just as a whole. And if there's any men, I'm sure Men's History Month is coming up. Contact me. You can be sitting here on the couch as well. If not, I'm going to grab Jason. Otherwise, so that's what we're looking to, just providing that hope. And the community needs it. And we're here in the center of the Valley. Boom, boom. No pun. The center. Okay. So we're looking to just, again, be that resource. And I am just like, I know you and I had spoken before, but just sitting here and just hearing all the things and how you've made such an impact, I think is just wonderful. It's a beautiful thing. Is there anything, as we, kind of start wrapping up, that you would like to share to our online audience, or we like to give hope? Is there anything you would like to share to them before we wrap things up?
And we've been talking about impact, and sometimes we think like this impact is just, I have to do something so big, or I have to have this big title. But impact, sometimes you never even know that you've made in someone's life. So I would say just everything you do with letting your light shine, just walking in those fruits of the Spirit. I think when you do that, you're going to make impact. I think, the word says that one plants, another waters, and God will give the increase. So when we're walking in our authenticity, our authentic self.
Yes.
You know, and we're letting our light shine with our kindness and our meekness and our gentleness and just having that empathy. I think we just make impact, whether you have someone who ever comes back to you and say, oh, you impacted my life or not. I believe that you are making that impact.
Yes.
And so I hope that I'm making that impact, because that is always the goal.
Yes.
You know, it's not my pastor, Brandon J., it's not always says he's been preaching. It's not the title. It's not the title.
Yes.
You know, what's the title if you don't have any influence or you can't make any impact?
Yes.
And not only that, to be walking into that calling before you even get the title. Yes. Like you asked me, when did I know I was a life coach? Well, in retrospect, I was walking in that way before I went on and got the certification.
Right.
So I think with this month of Women's History Month, like you've already said, the theme is providing healing, promoting hope.
Yes.
And I think we do that by your support group that you're going to do. I think we do it by the podcast we're doing now. I think when we tell people our testimonies, you know, so to speak, and create spaces for people to talk to people so people won't feel like they're alone.
Yes.
And that they're in this by themselves, because I think that isolation is what causes a lot more depression or stress or, you know, just feeling like you're by yourself.
Yes.
And so these spaces is important. And I think that's how you're making impact, by creating this space, and then the support groups and just different things like that. That's what the Valley needs. So anybody can make an impact. In all that you do, everyone's needed. We all have a purpose.
Yes,
we all have a purpose. And if you feel like, oh, I don't know what my purpose is, there's life coaches in the Valley. You know? So, you know, that's what we do. We all come together and we share our stories, and that's how we build our community. That's how we build our tribe.
Absolutely. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I thought I had a whole speech to say after that. However, I do want to say, which I love everything that you've said, and it's so true. One person definitely can make a difference, whatever that looks like. And as I always try to look for a scripture to kind of tie in, and as I was thinking through just Women's History Month and us talking about making that impact, one of the scriptures that came to me was from 1 Corinthians 13, 1 through 3. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all the mysteries and all the knowledge, and if I have faith that can move mountains but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all possessions to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but I do not have love, I gain nothing. And as I thought about that, I'm like, it's our love that we have that drives us to want to help and to want to make that impact one person at a time. And that's all it takes, one person at a time. So I thank you so much, Delia, for being here with us today. I thank you, our online audience, for just being with us again. And remember, the Sanctuary of Hope is here to support you and to be here to continue to encourage your growth. You can get connected to Delia at
honoryourvision.com. And also, I'm on Facebook as Delia Mitchell, Delia, and Mitchell.
Okay. And there you have it. Thank you so much, and be blessed.
Be blessed.